Hey everybody, ronarray here, and there's only one ascendancy that I haven't covered in an overview. A lot of people not expecting much from it, but I still think it could have a pretty nice potential. So let's go forward and I will be able to explain how we will be able to utilize Tactician, what kind of skills could work for it, and what in my opinion is going to be best build setups for it. Let's go. So talking about Tactician right now, we have a lot of questionable nodes right here, which could be still changed by the patch notes. And I would probably start with one which is the most questionable in my opinion. It's Stay Light, Use Cover. It gives you defense with 200% of armor, enemies have accuracy penalty against you based on distance, and maximum evade chance is 50%, and maximum physical damage reduction is 50% as well. I think Stay Light, Use Cover is very bad pick right here, because maximum evade chance is only 50% is not really nice. The only way how in my opinion it could be used, if you're going to use acrobatics, for example, with a very high evasion otherwise, so that way you can have a evasion around 50% with acrobatics on. But usually when you're playing evasion build, you want to push your evasion as high as possible, and right now getting only 50% would be not that good for basic survivability. I'm not really going to talk about armor, because in my opinion armor currently in a very bad position, and even if they're going to buff it somehow in patch notes, it's still not going to be bonkers. The previous node, on the other hand, could work in some particular situation. It's Polish that gear. It gains 100% of armor as extra stun threshold and gain 100% of evasion rating as extra element threshold. It's definitely a just anti-element node, because it could work just fine to protect you from elemental elements. If elemental elements will be buffed very heavily, maybe that node would be useful, but right now I'm not expecting much from it, and I think it will be very unpopular. So let's pick the next node, which is in my opinion pretty strong and a lot of people are sleeping on it. It's Cannons Ready. It gives you totems have 30% of more skill speed, and totems only use skills when you use fire and auto projectile. So generally, when you're receiving additional bonuses for skill speed, you need to look is it increased or more. Cannons Ready providing 30% more skill speed, so it's multiplicative, and it's going to provide a very decent bonus close to 30% for most of your totems. The downside here is that you will need to fire an auto attack projectiles, but if you're going to use a crossbow, and in my opinion Tactician should be used with a crossbow, I think Cannons Ready could be a very good option to play ballista totems, for example. I think currently we will have only 2 effective roads for Tactician to be strong in the end game. It's pretty much running with totems, for example at least ballistas, or creating a whole zoo of minions and utilizing different nodes to just increase damage of as many minions as possible. I'm currently believing that if GGG is going to buff totems, which been kinda a little unpopular before, Tactician could shine a lot. We also need to keep in mind, when we are looking at the Tactician, that GGG promised that they're going to improve the damage of crossbows, so crossbows overall are going to receive a significant buff. Tactician right now is the character that probably should be played with a crossbow, and buff for the crossbow is probably going to help it to showcase better results too. Let's go forward and to the left, showcasing the new nodes. If we have an 8% increased spirit right here, which is nice but nothing too crazy, and a solid plan. It gives persistent buffs have 50% less reservation. Right now that's a very nice node that could be used much more often for like aura stacker if that would be Path of Exile 1. But in Path of Exile 2 there's not a lot of potential to just do an aura stack, so I don't really think a solid plan sounds that amazing. However, you can still utilize much more auras, it's easier to get more expensive auras in, and I think it could be pretty useful in a lot of cases. Moving to the left, we will have increased presence area of effect, which is not that amazing, and a very nice node which is Watch How I Do That. In my opinion right now, Watch How I Do That and Cannons Ready, those are 2 strongest nodes that we have for the Tactician. Watch How I Do That gives you allies in your presence gain added attack damage equal to 25% of your main hand weapon damage. So running two-handed weapon with that node is going to be a very great idea. And I think if you're going to run it together with cannons ready, you can literally use a crossbow, which is going to get buffed, it will probably have more attack damage, and it's going to provide a pretty decent amount of physical damage to all your minions. For example, if you're going to play totems, which probably going to be physical, or will move your physical damage to fire, for example, as ballistas are doing, you will be able to feel pretty good. So combination of watch how I do that and cannons ready, I think that's probably the biggest reason why Tactician still could be very decent. But we need to keep in mind that unfortunately you will still need to play with totems, so if you dislike totem playstyle, which is kinda special and not for everybody, it can be saved for you. However, I think there is a pretty nice potential to at least have a very nice damage and, for example, clear maps when you don't really need to run a lot and when your speed is not playing a big role. Generally, totems in PoE 1 always been kinda questionable, but pretty nice playstyle if you can handle it. So going to the right, we have whoever pays best, which give you an opportunity to place multiple banners. I honestly think the banners right now in a very bad position. Almost nobody playing banners, and I don't really think that even buffs for banners are going to change that. So I don't really think there's a point to take whoever pays best, and that's sad in my opinion. But just taking a solid plan and watch how I do that probably is the best strategy. We also have projectile damage build spin, suppressing fire, and additional bonus which is pinned enemies cannot perform actions. I think combination of those two passives could be very great defensive layer, because if you're going to pin most of the enemies around and you're just going to completely stun them in the same fashion when you're like freezing them, it could be a very nice option, but we need to keep in mind that spending 4 points just for that could be a little too much. And to the right we have the last passive, which is Unleash Hell. It grants skill supporting fire. It's pseudo minion skill which will rain fire from above. It's looking pretty nice right now, and it provides minions from these skills have 1% increased accuracy per 3 of your dexterity and 1% of increased damage per 3 of your strength. So getting more attributes could be nice for it. I still don't think it would be nice for attribute stacker, it's probably not going to be enough, but it's a very nice supporting skill that could be used with the rest of your kit, and for example with Watch How I Do That, because the damage that Watch How I Do That is providing is going to be added for supporting fire, which is a minion in the current situation. So the strongest builds right now that we can run, it's taking Watch How I Do That and playing either totems or a complete zoo of minions with specters, with like SRS and stuff like that. All of that together, when every minion is receiving additional damage, could work pretty good. But I'm really hoping that GG is going to buff just totems significantly, and we will be able to utilize cannons ready together with Watch How I Do That. That way we are taking solid plan, Watch How I Do That, cannons ready and Unleash Hell all together. We are completely ignoring the pin, but we are receiving pretty nice damage bonuses across the board. The biggest question for Tactician and the biggest force which is pulling that whole Ascendancy down is, will Tactician be able to outperform Infernalist, for example, or Warbringer for totems, or even Leech, because all of those Ascendancies have pretty decent bonuses for minions. And that will depend on the patch notes changes, especially to totems, because currently in my opinion Tactician directly connected to totems overall. But I hope it will be able to showcase a pretty decent results, and I'm probably not going to completely close my eyes about that, and hope that something will come out of the totems builds. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and let me know what kind of build you would like to do with the Tactician if you ever going to try that. ronarray out.